And then the third scorecard is the Altcoin Market Scorecard. So to me, this is extremely helpful, even if you don't have any actual financial exposure to the cryptocurrency market. Being able to know whether or not small, capitalized, fast moving, fast growing companies or projects are outperforming in a very measurable way the rest of the market, it is very important to be able to track that. So if you know that we're in an altcoin season and the regime is very bullish, then you know that risk on assets tend to do generally well. So, and if it's bearish, you have to be more timid. Now, the way that it's designed is that there are 11 metrics that all roll up to a score that's indexed from 0 to 100, and the higher and the closer to 100 you are, the more bullish the regime and the market sentiment is. And what I love about it, and why to me it's very valuable, and why it's been extremely useful for me, and why I'm really proud of how it's built, is that it truly does cover every sub financial asset class, because I'll walk you through it. So metric one, for example, it's looking at Bitcoin dominance. How much market share does Bitcoin drive at any one particular time? And then you have all the different 8 time periods. So you can say, okay, right now it's bearish to neutral, right? And then if you look at metric 2, that is Ethereum versus Bitcoin. So the largest cryptocurrency versus the second largest cryptocurrency in Ethereum, and it's looking at the relationship. And if Ethereum is outperforming Bitcoin, then that tends to mean and suggest that altcoins are showing a little bit of a sign of life, right? It's just like if you were looking at Nvidia as a traditional stock versus the entire S&P 500. It is important to see that, to see if an Nvidia or if Microsoft or Intel, et cetera, are outperforming the entire index. It's very valuable early indication. Third metric is Bitcoin. Is it strong or is it weak? Altcoins, are they outperforming Bitcoin? Are small altcoins, right, outside of the top 10, are they outperforming Bitcoin? And then stablecoin dominance. So when you look at the entire available pool of capital across the entire crypto market, I define that as the global stablecoin capital pool. So out of that total capital pool, look at the market capitalization of it, divide, and it's around, let's say, it's around like 270 to 300 billion. The entire market is worth a few $trillion. So if you look at the total global stablecoin market capitalization divided by the total cryptocurrency market capitalization, that's the stablecoin dominance. And it's around 12%. Usually, you don't want it to be 12%. That's quite high. So you would want it to be closer to 8 if you were being bullish on altcoins. So the fact that it's above 10 means that you really truly should be cautious and should be careful. Usually it tops around 12 to 15 at the absolute like abyss and the bottom of the bear market. So that metric in itself is extremely valuable. The same with metric 7. The infusion of capital being on-ramped into crypto, you need that to be strong. You don't want that to be weak if you have a bullish bias. And then DXY is the US dollar basket of currencies. So it's tracking the performance of the US fiat dollar versus the basket of currencies like the Canadian dollar, the British pound, the Japanese yuan, the Chinese yuan, etc. So that is very, very important. And then crypto versus the Russell 2000/Russell 3000 index. So Russell 2000/3000 are the 2000 smallest publicly traded corporations in the world. And usually when crypto outperforms those, that's a very, very good bullish sign. Same thing with crypto outperforming S&P 500 and then crypto outperforming the NASDAQ 100, which are the 100 most highly capitalized, most valuable publicly traded tech and infotech companies. So you could see that all of these roll up into a score out of 100, and things are basically neutral to bearish, like for this sector, right? And I think this perfectly encompasses the entirety of what you would need to know to just navigate this space. So for me, it's just extremely helpful. And then we have a momentum section that just allows you to see, is it rising or falling and declining? What's the level of acceleration? What's the level of strength? How often are we above a certain number? Like how often are we above 60, which is bullish? How often are we above 80, which is very bullish? How often are we below 40, which is bearish, and below 20, very bearish, etc. So that's the altcoin market scorecard, and it's nice to just see, like, okay, are we in an altcoin season using like our 11 metric system, or are we in an altcoin season using, are you outperforming Bitcoin? You looking at specific coins. So these are outperforming, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the entire market is an altcoin season. So it's nice to just have all of the different models all together and allowing you to be able to see and make your own decisions. You're like, okay, when I'm purely looking at market capitalization, these tend to be outperforming Bitcoin, right? But when I'm looking at the bottom 10 performers, which are large scale projects, they're mostly underperforming Bitcoin, right? And then you can look at it as a sector by sector a heat map as well, and be able to just see like which ones are heating up, which ones are not, looking at the sentiment score as well. So it's just very helpful, and looks at also the correlation. So uh, this itself is interesting, because a lot of people always say, "Oh, well, the S&P 500 is, or the NASDAQ." They always say NASDAQ is directly correlated with Bitcoin, which was true in the past, but right now that's becoming less and less true. Like if you look at the S&P 500, it's only correlated to Bitcoin 8%. Right? Ethereum, it's only 14%. I mean, that's not directly correlated or inversely correlated in any kind of meaningful way. But Bitcoin is directly correlated to Solana. It is directly correlated to Ethereum. It is, so that is true, right? You can't argue that. So the empirical data is there to support that. And then obviously this changes if you change the time period and so forth. But and then rotation signals is interesting, because you want to see whether or not specific sectors are rotating capital away from Bitcoin towards smaller cap, more speculative, highly volatile assets. But yeah, that is really that's the entire point of it. And then you can also, when you have time, go through the other modules. But today I really just wanted to walk through the main scorecards. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, please just post them, ask them. I'm happy to help. Thank you.